Hi everyone, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra here today on John's Briefs with Tim Forshey, the defense attorney extraordinaire. And today I want to talk about a very controversial officer-involved shooting involving an officer and a man in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And we're going to talk about some of the legal stuff that's going to get involved here, but particularly I want to talk about using the process as punishment.
To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below.
So Tim, you've seen this from all sides, and if you haven't watched the analysis of it, I've put a link in the description, please watch it. Because what we had is we had an escalating conflict between a man, Patrick Loyola, and Officer Schur, who ends up wrestling with this guy for a number of minutes. Taser comes out. He ends up losing the taser. When the guy gets a hold of the taser, he shoots him once in the back of the head. And he has now been charged with second-degree murder.
Mm-hmm. Not surprising.
And here's the interesting thing. When I did the analysis of that video, I said, all right, I mean, the optics on this one are terrible, but given what we know, he loses his taser in the moment, and he's like, look, that guy has full control of my taser. He turns it on me and uses it. I'm most certainly a dead man.
Right.
And so I'm at risk of deadly threat. Had his gun out and shot him. But yet the prosecutor saw it so differently. Do you see instances where this is pushing off responsibility on someone else?
Well, yeah, clearly you do. And I think that this is, I hate to get all philosophical, but I think it's a systemic issue with regard to how we feel about police officers in this country right now. There's not the level of respect that people used to have for police officers. When I was a child, even maybe 15, 20 years ago, you always told your children, if you ever get lost, go to police.
Right.
And now there's this inherent distrust of police. And that's, I think, being fortified by the media to such a degree that it's borderline criminal. I really do. Yeah. And I think that what you get is, instead of publicizing the tragedy that happened here and focusing on the alleged misuse of force by the cop and all this stuff, how about if we focus on this? When a police officer tells you to show your hands, show your hands.
Yeah.
Police officer says, stop moving, get out of the car, drop the knife. Do it, okay? It seems like everybody now is focused on just having their friend film it so that they become famous and maybe make $1 million in a lawsuit, that sort of thing. And there's this complete disregard for common sense and safety. It's like, if a cop tells me to take off my pants and get up on top of his car and tap dance, I'm going to ask him if he has a particular tune in mind. I'm going to do it.
Now we'll talk about it in court afterwards.
Exactly. I may hire a lawyer to sue the living crap out of the police department when I'm home alive in a couple of days, but I'm not going to say no unless it's something that puts me in immediate harm. If the cop says, do somersaults in the heavy traffic, well, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Put the muzzle of my gun in your mouth, Mr. Forshey. No, I won't do that. But almost anything else, I'm going to do it. We'll deal with it later when I'm alive and safe. And that's something that people just seem to have forgotten.
And I think in most departments now, almost all officers are wearing body-worn cameras. Yeah. And so if officer wants you to do something, would you activate your camera, please, sir? I want to make sure that this is audio and video.
Yeah.
And then get it on camera. Yeah. Of course, the other part of that, we talked about both the bystander with the cell phone as well as the homeowner bystander was there.
Standing there watching.
And they could have helped get that guy into cuffs and avoided this whole problem. Okay, fine. But in particular, the officer's charged with second-degree murder, and I guess it feels to me like that's a prosecutor going, I'm not going to eat the community anger. Right. I'm going to push that community anger off on the jury.
I think that's exactly what it is, and I think we see it in lots of cases. I think we saw it in the Zimmerman case. I think we saw it probably in the Rittenhouse case, where it's such a highly publicized, inflammatory incident that for the prosecutor to look at it and say, nope, that's self-defense. Sorry, guys. They know that there's going to be pitchforks and torches standing outside of the courthouse soon, and they don't want that. They want it to be somebody else's decision. They send it to a grand jury, make the grand jury's decision, or they inevitably they just say, well, we'll leave it up to the jury. That way, I'm foisting responsibility on somebody else, and that's a really great way to pass the buck. And we see that all the time. And it's rare that you have a prosecutor or even a referring police officer that will have the audacity and the moral courage to just say, no. I know it looks bad, but that person was in fear for their life.
Well, and I think we saw this with the Zimmerman trial.
Absolutely.
Big time, which never should have been tried. It never should have been. No. I think that prosecutor should have been tried.
And again, that's not to say that George Zimmerman's the guy I want to pick to babysit my kids. I think he was an idiot, but it was not illegal what he did. That's all there was to it, A
clear case of self-defense in the moment. I think Thomas Binger wins prosecutorial Incompetence of the Year award.
He's the Hall of Fame, yeah.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore, maybe.
Even better, yeah.
Hall of Famer, okay. Hopefully he doesn't watch these videos. Maybe he doesn't learn.
Hey, maybe it'll help him.
But I see these kinds of charges and I go, man, we do have a split in our country. I've had a couple comments on that video since the charges have come. Defaming and being ugly and mean of, this murderer's in jail. And I, on the other side, is I look at these things, and we had one here in Arizona where we had Philip Brailsford prosecuted for Daniel Shaver's killing, Mesa police officer, and his duff cover that said you're effed on it and all these things. And I had somebody go, well, he murdered that guy. And I said, well, the jury said he didn't. Mm-hmm. And that's the bottom line. The prosecutor made his best case, took a shot, and got an acquittal. And I think another case where there's no way he's not prosecuting that case. Right. And of course, Bill Armstrong, who prosecuted that case, I can't ask him about it because now he sits on the Arizona Supreme Court. Yeah. I can't ask him about it.
Bill Montgomery.
Bill Montgomery, I'm sorry, correct. Bill Montgomery. But man, so how do we fix this, Tim? How do we make it where we don't have this kind of political stuff?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I think some sort of a citizens board of review, where you have some experts and you have some folks from the street, but you avoid the pitchforks and the torches, and you just get people that can calmly sit around a table like this and look at the facts and look at the law, and maybe you have the jury instructions in a self-defense case laying on the table, and we look at that because inevitably that's the law. The jury instructions is where the court instructs the jury on the law. The jury is the finder of fact. The court's the finder of law. The court says, okay, jury, here's the laws. Now you apply the facts and make your decision. So we look at those laws very specifically, syllable by syllable if we need to, and we have people review those, almost like an oversight of the grand jury kind of thing.
I was going to say, that sounds like a grand jury to me.
But with the grand jury, they're only getting one side of the story, and it's a slanted side of the story with a goal in mind. Here, my only goal would be justice should be served. And I don't think you allow the prosecutors to necessarily be there. You don't allow the defense attorneys to be there. You maybe just basically submit the police report and the law, and you have people who have no axe to grind, no ox to gore to make these decisions. I mean, maybe that would help. I don't know. I'm just looking for, we could talk about how to stop these mass homicides, which everybody calls mass shootings, which just grates me. And I've got ideas that I think might be helpful, and they're worth trying, but nobody wants to talk about that stuff. We want to talk about banning high-capacity magazines, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like that. It's like there are possible solutions out there, but they're not really that popular because I think to some degree it's the snake eating itself, and we just like to. There's certain people that love the controversy, and as long as it's staying in the headlines, it's going to get them reelected, that sort of thing. And I'm sad to say, but I'm cynical enough at this point in my life that I think there's something to that.
Yeah, I mean, I look at stuff like I got kind of pilloried a little bit in my discussion of the Chad Reed incident in Lubbock, Texas, where he shot a guy on his porch who was, his girlfriend's ex, trying to get, custody dispute and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I said, that looks like murder to me. That looks bad. And then the district attorney, everybody recuses themselves, and then so they gave it to the Texas Attorney General, who sent it to the grand jury and no-billed him. And I was just dumbstruck at that. What if we thought about doing something like, okay, so it's not necessarily overseeing the grand jury, but it is overseeing the behind-the-scenes prosecutorial look at what are you presenting to the grand jury, and what kind of case did you make to the grand jury?
In other words, to make them present both sides of the case.
Yeah, to make them present a fair case.
In theory, they're supposed to. And if I later find in discovery that there were exculpatory items that weren't presented to the grand jury, I can make them resend it to the grand jury, which now, of course, just wastes more tax dollars and my client's funds. But there is a process to correct that oversight. But it's amazing how people don't know it or don't exercise it, or maybe they don't find the exculpatory evidence in discovery that you need to do that. So, yeah, I mean, the slanted prosecution using a grand jury as a sham prosecutor, that shouldn't be happening, but it does.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that goes the other way in this case, because if you had a client that was charged, and I look, hey, you didn't present this exculpatory evidence, go back, and I don't even want to bill here. Yeah. But this other side, if the prosecutor doesn't present all of the evidence, or doesn't present that evidence in a way that says, I think charges are appropriate here,
and that's just as bad.
There will not be any, and nobody will look it over because there's no opposing side.
Now you literally have an uncharged murderer who's out there free to do it again.
Yeah. Well, and I suppose if you go, okay, wait a minute, as the plaintiff in the civil suit or something, I want to see the grand jury stuff. I don't know that they can get that, can they?
In theory, no, it's sealed.
Right.
But again, I think people overemphasize the civil aspect of this because in an intentional shooting, there's very, very little chance, at least in the state of Arizona, of any civil suit because there's no chance of recovery.
Yeah, because
there's no
justified
insurance.
conduct.
Exactly. There's just no way to collect on that. So what attorney, if it's a very high profile case or perhaps there's a celebrity defendant, now you'll see people sue those people because they want the publicity value. They want the notoriety. But if it's just Joe Schmo that's involved in this thing, no plaintiff's attorney is going to spend 2,000 or 3,000 hours over the next 3 years of their time and put $250,000 into that case to get a huge verdict that they'll never collect on.
That they'll never have any money.
So you just don't see them. Everybody always talks about, oh, you'll lose your house. No, you won't, because nobody's going to take the case. There's just no way to get money out of you. So, yeah.
So, guys, I can't. Sometimes it's political. I mean, sometimes it's just moving liability away from me onto somebody else so that I can stand there. And does that feel like Pontius Pilate washing his hands? Feels a lot like Pilate washing his hands to me.
Yeah.
But here's my call to all of us. Don't be that person, right?
I gotta say, the moral of the story at the end of the day is don't do stupid stuff. You know, I mean, again, it's way better to stay out of trouble than to try to get out of trouble. And I see clients and students all the time that, well, can I do this? If he does this and this, can I do this? Are you looking for a hunting license?
Right.
I mean, what can you do that? Is that your goal here? I mean, what do you...
So Tim said something off camera to me when we were just kind of getting started this morning that I want to bring to you guys, that, you know, that the ones that make a lot of noise are these ones in the middle, that there are most self-defense cases fall very clearly on either side of the spectrum. It's either, dude, take the plea. You did bad things here.
You absolutely did it.
Yeah. Or this is super much self-defense and the prosecutor goes, yeah, you're right, it is. And then it goes away. It's these ones that sit the middle that make all the noise.
Right.
But if you just stay over here and only use your firearm as a tool of last resort, only use defensive force when you don't have other options, then you're going to be over here instead of sitting in the middle here.
Almost every video that I watch that you do, and by the way, I love the work you do, and I think it's I'm a fan, but it's also, I think, a really great service to people. I use them in my classes. I think they're amazing. But almost every one of your videos that I watch, and you don't do this, you do a very good job of not saying the things I say, but I just always start off by saying, what a moron. What an absolute moron. I mean, it would have been so easy not to do that.
Yeah.
You know, a guy steals my parking space, a guy cuts me off. You know, like you always say, just wave at him.
Yeah.
And people seem to be unable to do that, right? And I would say wave at them and then silently say a prayer that he wakes up with a hemorrhoid the size of a volleyball and you'll feel much better. It's like, just don't be an idiot. Why would you roll your window down and scream at somebody and flip somebody off and, you know, brake check that? Inevitably, that's going to get way worse, and sometimes it gets really bad, and it makes it on your show. I mean, just don't do stupid stuff.
You know, and we see that. We have one, it will be on the channel this week, of a guy that is yelling at a dude double parked in front of him so he can't get out. Dude punches him hard in the face 3 times. Guy falls and hits his head on the curb, gets up, pulls a gun, and then other dude jumps back in his car, and while he's sitting in his car, dude fills him in.
Yeah. Over a blocked parking space.
Yeah, over a blocked parking space.
Go back in the air conditioning and call the cops. I mean, whatever. I mean, it's just, it's one of those little daily things that if you have the wrong day and the second guy cuts you off, people snap. You know, it always makes you think, I can't remember the name of the movie, but that Michael Douglas movie where he just snaps.
Oh yeah, falling down.
Falling down.
I'm
it's just
going
like,
home.
You know, people, I don't think we've ever had that bad of a day, but we've all had a day that rivals that. And it's just like, okay, take a breath. You know, just call in sick to your boss, go see a movie, sit in the air conditioning, have some popcorn, calm down. You know?
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. So, guys, sometimes this is the way things work. The only way to stay out of the politics of this, and sometimes you're going to get prosecuted for political stuff, is stay so far on the right side here that you're only acting when it's so clear that no reasonable person would disagree with it. So, Tim, thanks for the insight, man.
You bet. My pleasure, buddy. Thanks.